All right, and we're live.
Yeah, welcome to HeBrews and Talks.
Episode 2, where faith is unmuted.
Yeah.
A lot has changed, obviously. Our setup, our mugs. I got a haircut. But before we do anything else, I want to give a quick shout out to our good friend Eric Kim. He's the guy who created and gave to us free of charge the jingle at the beginning of our episodes. And so we love you, bro. We appreciate you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, Eric Kim.
Yeah. This podcast wouldn't be the same without the jingle.
No, for sure. Yeah.
All right, so like we always do, we want to just start out with a devotional real quick from HeBrews. I just want to share just the first 2 verses found in Hebrews chapter 1. I think, I feel like just this introductory 2 verses, we see how blessed we are, the fact that we get the Son. But let me read it for us. It says, "Long ago at many times and in many ways God spoke to our fathers by the prophets, but in these last days he has spoken to us by his Son, whom he appointed the heir of all things, through whom also he created the world."
Amen.
And it's like amazing because what the writer of Hebrews is saying is before Jesus, God spoke through prophets, right? God spoke in many ways, but the true blessing is after Jesus. We get to God spoke to us through his Son, right? I guess I don't know if they use the term or the phrase like straight from the horse's mouth anymore.
I don't know what that is.
I guess I'm showing my age a little bit, but it means like we're getting it straight from the source, right? Before these prophets and other people that would talk about the coming king, coming Messiah, it was secondary. It's kind of like buying Picasso's art that was drawn by someone else, right? So it's not the real thing. It's like an imitation, right, of the coming Jesus. But for us, it's like we get the Picasso drawing, like we get the Son, and he speaks to us through his Son, who is the Word in the flesh, right? In other words, through God's Word, right? God speaks to us, and it's such a blessing, right, that we can hold on to God's Word, that we can read it even on our phones, anywhere we go. The fact that God speaks to us through his Son, and he says he created the whole world, right, through Jesus. This Jesus is made available to us, something that the Old Testament people never had the privilege of having. They only got, I guess, the imitation, so to speak. But we get the real thing. I think that's an amazing blessing.
Amen. That's so powerful. Like as soon as you said it, I was like, that's a good word. Like, can you guys tell he's a pastor? But I know, like how you said, we get it straight from the source. I've never heard it worded in that way. Oh, that's so good. Yeah. I mean, what else could be said about that? Let me thank you, PE, for the devotional.
Yeah.
Hebrews is so awesome. I'm excited to get through this book as we do feature episodes. Let me give us an outline real quick of today's episodes. We just did the devotional, and for our primary segment, we're going to be talking about different ways to do ministry and church, and so I'm excited about that.
Yeah, it should be fun.
Yep, and the secondary segment is going to be a special one. We're going to react to how would you explain it? Like,
I guess like a influencer, someone like a YouTuber, TikToker.
It's like parodies of like influencers, and it's really funny. We saw like one clip of this, and like this is a brand new clip video, but they're like YouTubers. We'll give them a shout out when we get there, but yeah, that's basically for today.
Yeah.
All right, so interesting ways to do ministry and church. Hey, do you want to start off? Why we're talking about this one, not?
Sure. I mean, because I feel like the primary. There's so many things that church has to do, but the primary thing should be saving souls, right? So, what can the church do to more effectively reach people? I feel like nowadays, people who don't know God, they just don't come out to church. We can't simply say, "Hey, come check out our worship, come to church." They're not gonna go. They just find the church intimidating. Maybe some of them got hurt by the church or by people who they thought were Christians. For some reason, they just avoid the church. And So I was thinking, what if we brought the church to them, right? So instead of like meeting in a building, and I'm not saying that's not important. I feel like there should be buildings and people come in to an actual place to worship. But I'm thinking to reach the lost, it's like we go into their neighborhoods, we go into the cities, their towns, and we just have worship. It could be outside, it doesn't have to be in a building per se. But I got this because in one of the churches I used to serve at, we actually did that.
Really?
There was a trailer park right next to our church, and we're like, you know what? Instead of inviting them to our church, why don't we just bring the church to them?
Like on Sundays?
Yeah, on Sunday. We did it on a Sunday, and it was amazing. Like, we set up like a moon bounce for the kids in the neighborhood.
Wow.
We had like a barbecue going so people could come out and eat. And then we set up like our portable speakers, and we're like singing songs, and I got to share the gospel. And there are people there, but then there are also people who were kind of watching from afar, like they're watching from their doorstep.
Wow, that's cool
in
too.
In their porch, they're just sitting down listening to the gospel. And as soon as I ended, they went back inside. But at least those people got to hear it.
It's like the New Testament, like Jesus preaching in the streets and like people hearing and walking by.
It was like really amazing. I was thinking, man, this is what we need. Like they need to hear the gospel. So I guess you can say. If we were to use like hospitals and ambulances, like churches with buildings, they're like the hospital.
Yeah.
People who are sick, yes, you can go to the hospital. But I was thinking more like, why not make ambulances, right? They don't know they're sick. We go out to them where they are, and ultimately our goal is to bring them to the hospital, right? But until then, we can go out and reach out to them, share the gospel.
Right. So many thoughts, like as you're speaking. Like first of all, like, did you lead at your old church? Did you lead that like outreach, that ministry?
Oh yeah.
You did. Really?
I wasn't obviously the senior pastor, but I brought it up. I was like, hey, you know, I feel like we have such a great opportunity because our church was, I guess since it's a trailer park, it's people that aren't too well off, right? And every Sunday, you know, I drive by that neighborhood, and I know there's a lot of trailer parks in that park. Maybe like we're talking like 100 just homes. So you're talking about families in those homes, and some homes have multiple families. And I'm like, man, they're not coming because we tried. We'd be like, hey, we have VBS. We're having like special like fall festival, you know, during like Halloween. Not much interest. I was like, you know what? Why don't we just set a date? Thankfully, the weather was awesome.
Really? Praise God.
Yeah, it was like cool. It was like spring weather, and we set up and we put up flyers, and we got permission from, you know, the trailer park first.
Oh, really?
We spoke to the office. It's like, hey, we want to come and do a worship just to you know, share the gospel with the people, and they're like, yeah, just come, and they gave us some guidelines to keep, and we did that. So we spent like 2 weeks, kind of like letting people know that, hey, we're coming this Sunday at this time to worship. Why don't you come? So we went door to door. We had our youth go to the door to door and share. We see kids playing in the street. We're like, hey, we're gonna have moon bounce. We're gonna have worship here on this Sunday. Why don't you come out? Bring your parents. We had like I guess little like flyers, posters, kind of posted around the neighborhood too.
How many showed up?
Maybe like a good 40 people.
Wow, that's pretty good.
I was
for like a neighborhood.
For a neighborhood,
that's amazing. Yeah. 40, like not including the
kids.
church. Like
not including our church,
really?
not including kids, just adults. Yeah, I mean, some of them might have come for the free food, but either way, they stuck around from beginning to end. We had a few chairs set up. We brought from church, like the folding chairs out there, and then everyone else just kind of like either stood up or they just kind of sat on the grass. We found like a nice little like area to have worship. And
I mean, whatever the reason, like 40 is way more than like newcomers on like any like average church on a Sunday. So like, what kind of church gets like 40 newcomers to like hear the gospel?
Yeah.
I have a question. Like, did you guys advertise this as a part of the church that you guys came from? Like it was like a branch, it was like a ministry from that church?
Yeah, we told them, hey, we're from this and this church, and we want to come out to your neighborhood to worship with you. And we just had it, and I thought overall it went really well.
Yeah, I think that'd be a really cool idea. Like, just imagining like the opportunities, the testimonies that would arise. Like if you ask people like how did you come to the Lord? Like people sharing like, oh, like people like brought the church to us. Like that'd be crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just think that we need to actually be creative, not creative per se, but like, 'cause it's not legalistic, but like really give it our best, like foot forward to actually bring the gospel out to people. Yeah, which gets me thinking. Like I have an idea too. It's not my idea at all. Like I've actually attended one of these churches, but like I have obviously like we don't have mugs yet, but it's coming in next week, and we're super excited about that. But for now, we have these flower cups from P's house. But I attended it. At first, I didn't even know it was a church, but I love cafes, and our area doesn't really have like too many cool cafes.
Right.
Or like the best one we know of is Foundations. For those in the local area, Fairfax, that's a pretty cool cafe. But like when I was in Texas for a year, I lived there, and there's such cool cafes, and I would visit every single one of them. And I don't remember the name, but I found a cafe, and they would always play like Christian music, and it was like there was a huge stage and like on one end of the cafe, and I eventually found out that it was a church on the weekends, and it functioned as a cafe throughout the week. And they told me that their mission statement was to actually like have a bunch of unbelievers come through their doors throughout the week, and to their regulars they would preach the gospel and invite them to service on Sundays, and they would have a bunch of speakers, guest speakers. They'd have praise, and they would pack out the cafe on Sundays, and they would have worship there. And like cafe churches, I think are so cool.
That's very cool.
Yeah, and it's always been like a little like a small like dream of mine to like have my own cafe.
That's very cool. I think that's another way to. I think people like cafes. Whether you like coffee or not, they just like the vibe of it. They like to hang out. They like to do a lot of work.
That's true.
There, like I know I do a lot of work. You know, I like cafe type places just because I don't know. Something about like just being in an office by yourself. Yeah, it doesn't really fit me that well. I like having a little bit of like activity, seeing people walk around, have like some background noise,
like the white noise of people talking.
Yeah. So I think just from that aspect, people will come, right? Especially, I don't know what the cafe looked like at that church, but I'm sure it looked really nice.
Yeah.
And people are drawn in that way. So, I mean, any way we can get people to come in and hear the gospel, right? I guess.
To have the humility to not be so stuck to like what we're used to, and like just as long as we're prioritizing, like you're saying. The gospel getting to people. Yeah, exactly.
Wow. And I'm sure there are like a lot of different ways too.
Oh yeah.
To like bring people in. I know a lot of churches have like private like preschools. They have schools. Elementary to like even up to like college. Some
really
some church. Yeah, I've seen some churches where they have private school all the way up to college. It's actually there's one in the old place that I used to live at. It was a big Baptist church, and they had they had a preschool all the way up to seriously college.
Wow.
And it was a private, Christian education. I don't know what the rankings are. I never looked that deep. I was like, wow.
But they offer degrees and everything.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
really?
I don't know. They probably went through a lot of paperwork, a lot of stuff just to make all that get the accreditation and all that. But that's another way too. People find. If it's a good school, parents, now that I'm a parent, it's like they'll do anything if it means that their kids will get a good education.
Good education, protection from like just like not even, I'm not talking politically, but like liberal thought that's like way too extreme and radical and
right. And like I guess some people view like a Christian school a better environment than like public school.
Even like non-Christians think that. I think
because like I grew up in public school. There's like fights going on. There's like always stuff going on, and they just think, let me, even though I don't believe in God, let me just send them to a Christian institution because all the students will be,
like we teach like Christian morals, like kindness, gentleness, peace, and love and servitude and whatnot. I used to have a dream like when I was a kid because I loved like church friends and like my dream was like, man, I hated school. I think that was the biggest thing. But like my dream was like, man, I wish I could go to church like Monday through Friday and then go to school Saturday, Sunday. That was like my biggest dream and wish as a kid, and that would literally be like that's I feel like that's what it would feel like.
Mm-hmm.
Man, that's such a good idea too.
Yeah, I'm sure there are other ways that we haven't even like heard of yet that churches are trying out.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's time like we have to explore new ways. A lot of church focus on like the internet, social media,
Right.
to draw people in.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's value in that too, just
Right.
because people now everyone has social media.
Right.
We talked about that last week.
Yeah, we did.
But there's a pro to social media. You can reach so many people
Mm-hmm.
from from all around the world.
Yeah.
So churches have been tapping into that. They've been investing highly in all that tech stuff.
Yeah.
And that's great.
Yeah.
I think even like investing in like good worship team. Some people, I know there's many reasons they go to church.
Yeah.
One of them might be just praise team. They
Mm-hmm.
they like the sound of the band.
Yeah.
Like the professionalism of it and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So there's another way to reach the lost. But I think we have to kind of keep the tradition intact, but also at the same time find creative and new
Mm-hmm.
ways of reaching people.
Yeah, like the principles behind the traditions, I think, are what's important. Not like the motions of it themselves, but like, I think, like going off of that, I think for sure, I agree 100%. Like, the gospel message stays the same.
Right.
It's the method in which we get the gospel out to people that I think we need to be a little more flexible with and humble with, for the sake of the gospel and the King that we serve. Like even Jesus, like the way in which he was actually approaching worship and teaching, and like it was so against tradition. It was so against the flow of things, and like the religious leaders, they called him out. They were like, man, like you aren't hearing or following the laws and our traditions, and Jesus like, your traditions, right? And like so I think for sure like we definitely need like we need to wake up.
I mean, he was always breaking the Sabbath.
That's true.
I think he did that on purpose, just to mess with them
sure,
more. It's
like,
let me heal you on the Sabbath.
Yeah.
I know you're here.
Sabbath.
I'm gonna walk by you on Sabbath.
For sure, yeah.
But I think maybe this is like our Sabbath thing.
Mm.
It's like we got so tied down to the church. It's like, hey, there are new ways to preach and teach, and the gospel.
Mm-hmm.
And we need to kind of think outside the box and outside of what's been going on, and step out a little bit.
Yeah. You were talking about like the advantages of social media. With that being said, I think one of the advantages is actually accessing some of the content that we're going to be reacting to throughout these like podcasts. And so like the people that we're going to be watching right now, if you want to move on to the secondary segment, is these guys. They're called Sunday Cool. And basically, they have a podcast as well. And so, like, we want to give them a shout out. Check them out on YouTube. They have TikTok, I think. And I'm sure they're on other podcast platforms as well. Mm-hmm. But Sunday Cool, it's a couple of guys. They make like parodies about Christian influencers or like prosperity preachers and whatnot. So that's what we're going to watch today.
So we don't know how this will translate for those who are listening on Spotify.
Right, that's true.
You might you can, I guess, hear the audio for now, and then maybe go back and watch it on YouTube so you can see what we're watching. But here we go. This is our first time watching this clip, so
I'm excited.
We don't know what to expect.
Yeah, these guys are pretty funny. All
right. Even the music.
Mm-hmm. Are you experiencing homelessness, sickness, job loss? Sounds like y'all are experiencing a PPP, a personal prayer problem. Come on now. So let's see.
I look at this crowd, I see a lot of targets on your back. And the devil himself, he's an archer. But you know what an arrow can't pierce? Faith. And a stack of $100 bills, am I right?
Let me ask you this. If God didn't want us to have nice houses, Why do I have one? You might want to get yourself some Flex Seal, because I just punched a hole in y'all's logic.
My neighbor walked up to me the other day, and he says, Bill, I just need help. I'm poor. I looked at him and I said, you're poor? When's the last time you prayed? Bill ain't no longer poor. And guess why? Because he sowed that seed.
I am not what they call a mainstream preacher. Mainstream? There ain't no way I can fit my yacht down a mainstream. I'm talking about the ocean. I'm an ocean man. Give me the Gulf any day of the week. And twice on Sunday.
Poor people are stupid. I mean, it ain't hard to make it
Poor
up.
people are stupid.
A lot of sinners. I see sick people. I see poor people. Get him out of here.
You like your shoes? Got a Target. Like I would ever go there. Target. I don't even pick up my milk from Target.
Did I just hear a cough? Get out of here.
I've had it. I can't take it much longer. There's too much of a heaviness in this place. I rebuke you, homelessness. I rebuke you, sickness. I rebuke you.
This is like so on point with like
Yeah, even like their
Stay away from my flock.
even like their acting. I think that's what makes it funny. It's 'cause like
their mannerisms, like the things that they do.
Now, we all heard that saying, when life gives you lemons. But what I'm saying is, when life gives you lemons, you rebuke that spirit of wickedness. And you demand
Exactly.
that life gives you the gift of money.
Even though the
and
way
I
they
demand
talk.
you give that to me. Amen?
Some of y'all ain't taking this seriously, and it makes me sick, and I never get sick.
That ain't the will of God.
Now, in closing, I love this church, and I love what y'all done for me. Because of you, I have the two fine.
is that how like prosperity preachers think? Like if are they actually like being accurate or are they like overdoing it? Like if you're sick or poor, it's like it's like
lack
a
of
measure
faith.
of your faith.
Yeah.
Oh really?
Yeah, I've seen that talked about a lot. And actually, in the very beginning, the other guy with the longer hair, he said, you know, if you're not rich, if you're this and that, you have a PPP problem. He said it was a personal prayer problem. They say like you gotta pray more is because you lack faith, and we kind of treat prayer like that too. Sometimes we can, like we think like, oh, I gotta pray, you know, to get rich. I gotta pray. Like we use it as a way to get things from God.
Yeah.
And there is, you know, teaching like that too amongst like prosperity gospel, prosperity preachers saying like, you know, another common phrase we hear is like your best life now, right? If you're not, your life here should be, you know, your best life.
Yeah.
But that's not what the Bible preaches.
Yeah, at
right?
all.
It doesn't matter what what your life is here. It's all about, you know, eternity.
Mhm.
So it's like, I think people fall into it because, you know, who wants to be poor? Right?
Yeah.
And who wants to be sick?
Mhm.
They all want to be wealthy. They all want to be healthy. They all want all these different things. And they hear like, oh, you just gotta pray more. You gotta grow your faith more. You gotta, you know, do this and that. And they just like kind of fall into that. And, you know, yeah.
It's a good message, and it's like I feel like it's an excuse for people who are rich to like kind of like validate themselves and okay, I see.
Yeah.
Interesting. I didn't know it was like that was the teaching.
Yeah, they do teach those things.
Fighter jets in all the land.
If you're wondering what tribe I would have been in the Old Testament, well, it would have been the tribe of Benjamin. Can I
Oh my goodness.
Big blessings, you gotta sow big seeds. Seems pretty simple to me. Dig deep in those walls. Pull out that purse. Grab a dip card. All right? Do it for the Lord.
I haven't seen in
For the
12
Lord.
years. 12 years. I have not seen in 12 years. Some of y'all sinning right now. I'm looking at you.
Our missions organization has reached 253 countries, 17 continents. Now, I ain't good at geology, but that seems like it's covering the whole planet, y'all. And some of y'all are afraid to go across the street and ask them to tithe. Mark, what are y'all doing?
They say the root of evil is the love of money. I don't love money. I just have a lot of it. Is that my fault? No. Do you know
Is that my fault?
Because if you go home, there's a lot
True.
in your yard. Just because you have a lot of it doesn't mean you love it. Same thing with my money.
I can feel someone in the crowd here tonight that is suffering with a dirty, dirty disease. And that disease is psoriasis. The itchy skin disease. Now, they say it's incurable, but not with the Lord's help. So what I'm asking you here is if you want to be healed, all you gotta do, have faith? No, sir. Sow that seed today to the address below.
You sow a seed, you reap a harvest.
To the address
Well,
below.
I sowed a seed and I reaped a Hummer.
Oh, yeah.
Calm V with platinum wheels.
he's tied it up.
I don't make this up. I don't.
people that are free from lead and money and content with what you have, for he has said, I will never leave you nor forsake you.
Hebrews. How fitting. It was a Hebrews.
We didn't even know. That was a complete accident.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah, like I feel like I've seen I don't know who these pastors are, but they're like famous TV pastors, and they're like they were this one guy was in court, and they're like going through the finances. And, hey, why'd you buy all these like super expensive name brand suits? And he's like, well, I'm on TV, I gotta look good, and he's like trying to justify all these things like. Why do you fly on like a private jet? Like all these things, like I got many places to go.
Yeah.
I think I don't think all these pastors start out that way. A lot of them start out with genuine, love for the Lord, and then once people hear, and once the church grows, and once it gets really big, they just kind of fall into the temptation of money, and this, and. People buy into that stuff. They all want to. Everyone wants to be rich. Everyone wants to be happy.
I think interesting. Like you say that they don't start out this way, and I agree. Like I even know of some who like actually have a really solid background. They went to a very like conservative seminary, and then at some point they just fall into that temptation. Do you believe like these preachers who have kind of fallen into this temptation? Do you believe they're like saved? Or is that like, is the fruits showing that like they were never saved?
I mean, I don't know. Only God knows. But I guess we can only tell what we can see with our eyes, and I don't know. I would lean towards no. I'll lean towards like maybe they're just false teachers. Because I guess they are, because they're kind of twisting the word to make it sound like, hey, you gotta live your best life now here, when that's not what the Bible teaches.
Like, do you feel like it's like the pastor's responsibility to actually call people out who are intentionally doing this, like intentionally preaching like prosperity gospel, and like from the pulpit you believe that we should like call these people out?
Oh yeah, but we should do it wisely. I know, like I've seen people say like, "Hey, what about Jesus?" while this pastor was like preaching,
Really?
in the middle of the sermon. So I was like, I don't think that's a wise way to do it, because you're just trying to say, "Hey,
like
let's just fight."
That's chaotic.
Maybe if you have a way to kind of reach out to them, you have some like contact info or some method to reach out to them. I think we should. That's part of like, I know we think of church discipline as within the church, but I think even church to church, or even pastor to pastor, like if we genuinely care, I think we would reach out, because we know like that person has such a big voice, right? So if it's like a mega church pastor, and we don't want his voice being used to lead people astray.
Yeah, what about like pastors themselves, like from the pulpit? Like, for example, like if a pastor's preaching, do you believe they should actually use like Joel Osteen as an example of like what not to follow? Because I think about like Paul, like he like called people straight out, like he didn't care, like if you were corrupting the gospel. But again, like we're not Paul, and like pastors right now aren't Paul, and like I see like, I don't know, I know a friend who had an opportunity to preach, and he was preaching, and he used like a meme, like a joke of Joel Osteen for like his sermon illustration, and that afterwards, like an older couple approached him, and they were like kind of railing on him, like you shouldn't use other pastors like as a joke, like Joel Osteen like really blessed us in our lives and in our faith, and he was like taken aback, and like it caused like this huge controversy. But what do you think?
I mean, I guess to each their own, but I personally wouldn't. I don't think it's. I wouldn't talk about pastors or anyone negatively, like in a sermon setting, like where I'm in front of people. Like one-to-one, yeah, of course. Like if I feel like, hey, you need to correct this, I'll do it. But to use the pulpit as a way to like attack, because I know like it was meant as a joke, but it's still like you're kind of jabbing at the person. And I don't think that that is a good thing.
True.
Yeah.
I see. All right. That was, I feel like, successful. You have anything else for episode 2?
No, I think we talked a lot about, just the church and the gospel, and, we watched a prosperity, Preachers Be Like video, and we talked more about the gospel, but I think that's what we want to do on Hebrews and Talks, right? This again will be another way for us to reach people who need to hear the gospel. For those who already know the gospel, just to be reminded again of the gospel.
Yeah.
I think we're kind of using this in that thinking outside the box way.
Yeah.
I know there are like so many podcasts who do the same thing, but I think it's a big step for just you and me to do something like this. I think the intention behind all this was to get the gospel out to people.
Yeah.
Right, reach people. So
No constraints, no pressure of like a title or an institution. Just faith unmuted was the goal of this podcast, or is the goal of this podcast.
Yeah.
For those of you who are watching, thank you so much for watching.
Yeah.
We just want to let you guys know that we do have an Instagram. I think most of you are following it, but like we're gonna drop down like when the next episodes are coming out and whatnot. It is gonna be at like 6 a.m. right, every week now.
Yeah. So those who are commuting to work, you can have something to listen to on the way.
Right.
And I think so. This Friday it will drop at 6 a.m. So we appreciate you guys listening to us on your commute. I think that's a blessing. The fact that you take the time out of your day to listen to two guys like us just talk about the gospel and just our faith. I guess I sound kind of like a YouTuber, but like and subscribe to our YouTube channel.
To say that.
Yeah.
Like, comment, subscribe.
Share it.
Yeah.
Click
We
the
also
notification bell.
for like some of our secondary segments, we agreed that we would actually answer questions as well. And so like if you guys have questions, like we're gonna brainstorm our own as well. But if you have questions of your own, you can leave them in the comments, or you can DM us on Instagram. We'll get back to everybody. We'll actually give you a shout out for the next episode, and we'll answer your question as well. Yeah. If we have the time.
Sounds good. I think that's a wrap for episode 2.
All right.
Yeah.
Had a good time.
Yeah. Thank you for joining, and I guess we'll see you next week.
Yeah, we'll see you all next week.
All right.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.